Welcome to Strange Darkness Radio, where we take you on a journey into the unknown and explore the darkest corners of the human experience. I'm Sky, the AI voice of the show, and I'm excited to introduce your hosts, Bobby Washington and Carolyn Gray. Together, they will be your guides through the eerie and unsettling tales that lurk in the shadows. From ghosts and hauntings to cryptids and extraterrestrials, we cover it all. So, get comfortable, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the macabre. It's time for Strange Darkness Radio.
Welcome back to Strange Darkness Radio for another episode. I'm your host, Bobby Washington.
And I'm Carolyn Gray.
Yes, Carolyn, welcome. Hey, so tonight is going to be very interesting. We have a special guest for tonight's episode talking about Mayan folklore and other tales. Her name is Erika Echevarria. I hope I said that right. And she's going to be an amazing guest. She always has intriguing stories, and I'm so curious to get into this particular topic. I don't know much, so it's going to be a lot of falling back there. I'm not sure about you, Carolyn, how much Mayan folklore you're aware of.
Yeah, not much. I'm kind of just along for the ride tonight, but I'm excited to listen and hear Erika's stories for sure. It's going to be a good episode.
All right, well, let Sky introduce her.
Welcome back to Strange Darkness Radio. We're thrilled to have Erika Echevarria return as our guest. Erika is a practitioner of Curanderismo and brings a wealth of knowledge in Wiccan and pagan-based practices. On today's episode, she will delve into the fascinating world of Mayan folklore, offering unique insights and perspectives on this mystical topic. Join us for an intriguing conversation with Erika Echevarria as we explore the realms of the paranormal and the mystical. Let's welcome Erika to tonight's show.
Erika, welcome to tonight's show.
Thank you so much. I love being here with you guys.
It's amazing to have you back and to have you, go into, Mayan folklore, because again, I don't hear a lot of it on the web. I hear a lot about the stories of different gods, because there are a numerous amount of gods in the Mayan culture. I found that to be very interesting.
Oh, yeah. If you combine Aztec and Mayan gods, and even goddesses, we could spend a good amount of time on the radio.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we should do another episode on that.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Very intriguing. It's very intriguing. So what are we discussing tonight?
So tonight it's not going to be so much about Mayan or Aztec gods. It's more of the Mayan folklore, Mayan spooky stories that I grew up with as I was a child, that my mom grew up telling me, that are pretty, I want to say they're factual. Yeah. I mean, there's enough presence out there for us to believe that these stories are true or could potentially become true.
Exactly. That's true within itself. Because it's all about, the belief and the experiences that our ancestors and our elders have lived with and been through, to pass all this information and knowledge down. So what is
for sure.
Okay. So what is our first folklore tale that you want to, and again, I don't mean tale as in not true, just tale as in story. Just for
story.
Those.
Yeah. No, I get you. It depends. Which one do you want to go with? So I have two to tell.
Okay.
It's pretty much a mother-son combo, but do you want to hear about the son first, or do you want to hear about the mother first?
Let's hear about the mother.
All right. So for the mother, there's a story out in El Salvador. That's the country that I was born in, and that's where these stories mainly originate from. Mm-hmm. But as you go through different Spanish countries, you'll find that a similar story runs through the same kind of scenario. So the first one is called La Ciguanaba. I know in the Philippines, they have a similar version of La Ciguanaba. And mainly the Ciguanaba was this beautiful woman. Her name in Nahuatl, called Sigüetwet, was the meaning of that name was beautiful woman.
Oh.
And she was said to be this beautiful woman who appears to men. And she was, the main reason that she was cursed into what is now La Ciguanaba, also known as La Ciguampera in our country. She was beautiful and used her enchantments to seduce the son of the god Tlaloc. Because of this, she was cursed with a deformed child, which we'll get into later, which is the second half of the story. She was unfaithful to her husband many times while he was at war, and she neglected her one child, El Cipitillo, which is the second story that we'll get into. The god Tlaloc found out about these happenings and cursed her into becoming this creature that is now known as La Ciguanaba, La Ciguampera. In essence, she is this woman that appears to men who are either drunken or they're unfaithful, or in lack of better terms, they're very horny.
Okay.
Very, very wanting.
Which are most men, but that's another story for another day.
Which are wanting the presence of a woman. She appears to them in El Salvador, and where she appears is usually around rivers or streams. She'll appear at a river with like this beautiful white, somewhat see-through dress, and she's gorgeous, so you're like raptured by her beauty.
Mm-hmm.
You want to stop by and pretend that you want to make sure that she's okay. And when you get close to her, what happens is her skin will start falling off.
Oh, wow.
And she'll become this hideous creature and will turn that person, that male, into, it could be many things. So my parents knew of a man who had an incident with her and he became mute. But they say that she'll turn that person insane.
Mm.
So
that's interesting.
That's the story of La Ciguanaba.
So he actually had contact with this entity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
Yeah, that's interesting. And this was in El Salvador?
This is in El Salvador. Now there's El Salvador in contrast is very small. It's a very small country, the smallest country out of all of Central America and out of all the Latin countries out there. But the smaller towns, which a lot of them, El Salvador is home to very many volcanoes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of little towns just speckled all throughout the country. And, there's not a lot of commerce. There's not a lot of big cities and these big sprawling areas. So she'll appear usually when a man is out at night and he's drunk and he's walking home or driving home or whatever it may be. And there's a lot of rivers, there's a lot of creeks, a lot of ponds and lakes and things of that area. It's a tropical area in El Salvador. And she will appear in one of these tropical areas in one of these bodies of water. And that's, where usually the spooky stuff happens.
Yeah, that's interesting because, there was a lot of missing guys, and I don't know if they ever figured those murders out, but they were all, like college-aged guys, and they would come up missing by like bodies of water. And I don't know if they ever solved those murders, but it's just...
You talking about the smiley face murders?
I'm not sure about that.
Where they find them drowned or whatever? No. Or not drowned, but they find them in water.
Yeah, well, they find them on the beachhead, or they find them in like near lakes and different things like that. But I've never heard of like a name put to it or anything like that. It was just a string of different, and it was in like the Midwest. So it's just interesting if those entities exist here in the States, because of a lot of the cultures, it's because again, is it a lot about belief to make those entities appear? You know what I mean? Like the more people you have and the cultures that start moving into other areas, and they bring their culture and heritage into that in their beliefs, and they make those entities start to appear because that's what they believe, and they're frightful of certain instances, as just as a people, your heritage, and you bring that along, and all these stories get passed down, and they're being told, and so that's an interesting tale.
Is there how do you say the name of it again?
La Siguanaba.
Siguanaba. Does that mean anything, or is it just a name?
It's a name that was originally given. It was written in Nahuatl, which is another language, is a Mayan language, as Sigwetwet, which means beautiful woman.
Oh, yeah.
So when she was cursed, the name was... Spanish is a derivative of Spaniards and of our indigenous language.
Mm-hmm.
And as the Spaniards came in and colonized all of us, as they so horribly do to so many other countries.
Been there.
Right. The Spanish language kind of mixed and kind of contorted with what was indigenous, and some indigenous some indigenous groups that still live within El Salvador that only speak their own indigenous language. So Nahuatl is one of them. Nahuatl is one of those languages that was the indigenous language that was spoken or is still spoken in El Salvador.
Oh, okay. And why does she only appear by water? Is there a reason for that? Or it's just because there is so much water there?
I think this is my belief. I never really asked that question as a child. I just kind of accepted what it was. And I was like, okay, I'll make sure to bathe inside from now on. If we think about it, water is a life source, right? It gives, it takes away. But as humans, we are drawn to water. And I think that is just an easy way, kind of like the woman in white who appears on the highway. Why the highway?
Yeah.
Well, that's a large area of travel where she knows that she's going to find, her next victim. So I think that's why waterways or bodies of water are used, because they could be so easily manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Interesting. All right, let's get into the sun, because wow.
Yes.
He has a hell of a mom.
See, Wet had a son. When Tlaloc, the god Tlaloc, found out, which is the god of rain, mind you, when the god of rain found out that she had been unfaithful to his son, she cursed not only Si Wet, but also her offspring, which is known as El Cipitío. El Cipitío is actually pretty creepy to me, because he is a being that can be most described as an elemental being, but can also be described as some sort of elf, or what's another word for elf?
Like a goblin or a gnome.
Gnome. That was the word that I was looking for.
Okay, with the pointy hat.
Right. He has a large hat that oversized hat that you will see him with a big poofy belly. The creepy thing is his feet are deformed and they're backwards. So he has backwards feet, and he'll typically throw rocks or purposely get people lost in the forest because they're trying to find out where this rock came from. So he's leading them everywhere. Mainly only children can see him. But El Cipitío is the offspring of La Siguanaba, and he can be considered a nuisance, but can also be dangerous in theory, because he can what's the word I'm looking for? He can form a dangerous attachment to someone.
Oh, okay.
And that's the story that I'm going to tell you about today. So when my mom was growing up, she had a classmate, a girl, and she had beautiful long hair. And this classmate started to lose a lot of class. She was absent. She became absent of many, many days, and they didn't know what was going on. So my mom's family visited her family just to make sure that they were okay. It's the kind of thing that you do in small little towns. And they found out that El Cipitillo was involved. And what that means is the young daughter had formed an attachment with El Cipitillo and was being controlled by him. He was preventing her. Every time he would stroke her hair, he would take like life force. And we all know, people that we come in touch with their energy, they can kind of be a vampire energy to us and kind of take that life force. So that's kind of what he was. And he was sucking her dry, in other words. So they went to a shaman. They went to a shaman in El Salvador to find out how they could get rid of this attachment. And they found out that El Cipitillo doesn't like disgusting things. So they would force her to eat stale corn tortillas in the restroom. And that would gross him out. So eventually it started breaking that attachment, and she came back to her natural health, and she regained her weight, and she was normal again. But my mom tells the story that it was a true happening.
Wow.
And do you personally believe that that's true, that it was because of El Cipitillo that all these things were happening to this girl? Or do you think it could be, what do you think?
I'm a believer in the elemental. I'm a believer in Sprite, in the Fae, in cryptids, in Bigfoot. And I think that there's things out there that we don't 100% understand, number one, and that we don't 100% have documentation of, that we can't exactly prove. I think it brings a little bit of magic into the world, knowing that there's something out there that we really can't explain with a science book. And I think that's important to kind of keep that childish enthusiasm, that childish wonder alive. Is it scary? Yeah, I think it's scary.
It's definitely scary.
To think that can happen. It happens in forested areas, right?
Yeah.
So here in the city, we're worried about our kids getting shot or getting stabbed or getting kidnapped.
Right.
Over in our indigenous countries, we're worried about sprites and elves and gnomes that will, form an attachment or get you lost in the forest. I think it's very plausible.
Yeah, and these type of entities, the stories and the knowledge about them were passed down via, whether it's artistic expression on the walls, along with stories that were orally told, by ancestors. And they told it exactly, how this experience happened, that your, parents were involved in. Like, this is what happens. This is what you need to do. This is how to cure it. And it works,
And it works.
Because you see all the signs that they talk about and you try to implement that, and you like, okay, this is a case of X, Y, and Z. Let's do these things. And it seems to work. So to me, that's, that is like, proof, that the stuff is real and it actually, works, and these entities are out there, and is something that, because a lot of the things that happen in the U.S., we stick to this person is mentally ill, or this person has, this particular disease or ailment. But like I've always said on this show, there are people who've had these things happen to them, 100 years ago, and there wasn't drug companies and all these other places to fix, the quick fixes and this, that, and the other. It was like getting to the root of it, because a lot of these people, they're not being fixed. They're just being fed a drug to maintain.
It's
and
numbing them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not getting, really help, the full help they need. And I think if some of these practices were still in place, we would be able to really get to the root of, these things. Because a lot of people have curses and attachments, that are on them, like, was it CPTO? Let me sure I say that. LCPTO.
Yeah.
And
you got it.
yeah. And so yeah, it's like, again, I don't know if it's you have to be in that culture to, for it to affect you. And or is it just, something that can happen to anyone is if you fall prey to it?
Yeah, it's definitely.
It's so true too, because Bobby and I, we do this show. We're open-minded. I totally believe that there are multiple dimensions and there are things out there that we can't always perceive and see and feel and touch, but that doesn't mean they're not real. And especially in countries, in Central and South America, where there's so much land that's just unoccupied. There's the rainforests and the Amazon, there's deserts. It's vast, it's huge. Why couldn't there be something, lurking in there that we just haven't identified fully, or obviously some people have, but like Erika was saying, we live in, the more northern part of the countries or of the Americas, and we live in cities. We don't worry about that kind of stuff because we don't deal with it personally in our day-to-day lives. But yeah, why not? Why couldn't it be real?
Exactly.
No, certainly. I mean, if you go to Mexico, they have a very similar story, and they're called Cheneques. And they believe strongly in Cheneques. It's not something that's taboo or shouldn't be spoken of. Like, they will openly tell you. Yeah, they'll openly tell you, oh, I think this was whatever situation that is that happened to them. Oh, I think this may have been a Cheneque, a gnome, or an elf of some sort.
We actually have it in Brazil too. We have our own version of the exact same thing. It's called the curupira. Have you heard that before, Erika?
No, I haven't.
But it's exactly the same thing. The pot belly, he wears that red pointed hat. He's got bright orange hair, and he's got the backwards feet. And I remember when I was a kid, my mom bought me this, kind of storybook of all these folklore stuff from the Amazon and from Brazil. And that it had pictures because it was like a kid's book. And that picture used to scare me so bad because he just looked so creepy with the backwards feet. I don't know why.
That's interesting.
But that always stuck with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in Brazil, he's more of
That's
a
funny.
trickster. He's not like evil. He'll just kind of play pranks and mess with you. But
yeah, but it's interesting how all these stories, kind of correlate as far as the description and, the figures and everything else. And, that stuff is just not being pulled from the air. And especially how information used to travel, back then. So that's
so true.
very, very, very interesting. All right, let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back.
Thanks for listening to Strange Darkness Radio. We value your thoughts and opinions, and we want you to be a part of our show. You can call our Strange Darkness Radio hotline at 916-741-3032 or email us at strangedarknessradio@gmail.com to share your stories or ideas. For more updates and exclusive content, follow us on Instagram at Strange Darkness Radio, Twitter at SD Radio, and Facebook at Strange Darkness Radio to join our ever-growing Strange Darkness Radio family. Stay connected with us, and together let's keep the mystery alive.
All right, we are back with Erika. Okay, Erika, we're going to go ahead and play an email that was emailed to us by a listener. I just want to get your thoughts on it based upon it was sent from someone who went to a Mayan temple.
Ooh, okay.
Hello, Strange Darkness Radio. Allow me to share a Mayan story, one that revolves around my exploration of Chichen Itza and various other Mayan temples. Okay, so this experience has left me in shock. I was on vacation in Cancun, Mexico last week. I took a side trip to Chichen Itza and some other ancient Mayan temples and ruins. My sister was with me, but she couldn't care less about history, so I took much more time exploring inside the temples and touching the walls and all that. I even took a piece of rock from inside the temple with me. I love ancient history, so it was kind of my thing. That night, I went back to our resort. I fell asleep on the couch in the living room while my siblings were in their rooms. I kid you not, it was exactly 3:02 a.m. when I woke up in the middle of the night. The clock was right next to the couch, so I noticed the time and was about to fall asleep again when I heard a noise in the kitchen. I raised my head to see if maybe one of my siblings was up when I noticed 3 dark figures staring right at me. I was literally scared out of my mind. I couldn't move for some reason, probably due to my fear. I was in shock. They came closer, and I noticed they were dressed in Mayan clothing and didn't have human faces, but carved Mayan faces like those on the statues of the gods. I couldn't even move. I was frozen. It was an insane feeling of fear that overtook me. One of them raised their hand, and immediately they all disappeared. I thought I was dreaming, so I literally started pinching myself, and I was fully awake. I ran to my sister's room, woke her up, and told her the Mayan gods were in our kitchen. She obviously didn't believe me and thought I was dreaming, but I ended up waking everybody up and told them exactly what happened. I couldn't have been dreaming because I was fully conscious. It was all too real. I was sweating insanely and was red as if I had been running. I've never believed in the paranormal, and I've always been skeptical. I don't know what to make of this. Could they have been angry that I took a rock from the temple? I don't know. It was weird. That's my story.
And that is very interesting. And I sent this story to Erika just to get her thoughts on it before the show. And I love what you sent me, Erika, with the, talking about, the shadow figures on Chichen Itza. Hope I said that right.
Chichen Itza.
Wait, say it again. Oh man, here we go.
Chichen Itza.
Chichen Itza. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. And so, and not even thinking when these people go to these particular places, that there, were sacrifices that happened, at these pyramids, and they were, sacrificed somewhere, in certain parts of the front area, like they had those games that they play with this ball. And basically, I'm not sure if they all died, but if you lost, you definitely died. But just all the stuff that happens, on those lands that, there are, figures and entities that are trapped there, trying to, either attach onto you, attach to an object. And then you also sent me, you were saying about the stones, Erika?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my question would be is how did she take this rock? Was it out of respect?
Probably
did she
not.
Take it? Exactly.
You're taking it for, as a souvenir.
Did she ask permission? I want to say I went to Hawaii for my honeymoon, and they have the goddess Pele, and you're not supposed to take anything from the beaches of Hawaii, because you have to, number one, ask for permission, and if you get a sign that it's okay, then you're good. But if you don't get a sign that you can take from the beaches, then something bad will happen to you, and something bad did happen to me.
Oh, to you too.
What?
Oh, wow.
Yes. You have a story?
Oh,
I do. I do. It's somewhat of a funny story, but I still believe that it was very much Pele involved. So I had read about Pele before I went because I wanted to become knowledgeable in the culture and, about Hawaii. And I had asked for a sign. I wanted some seashells from the ocean and the beaches that we were visiting. And we were in Maui, which regrettably, the fires have destroyed that area of the Haina, but that's the area that we were in. And what happened was I did take the seashells.
Oh, seashells.
I did take the seashells.
I wouldn't even have thought that seashells would even, you know what I mean? Because it's seashells opposed to,
They're Pele seashells.
They're Pele seashells. So what happened to me was my husband, I'm petrified of the ocean.
Okay.
I just believe in its strength so much that I have a healthy fear and a healthy respect for the ocean.
Yeah.
So my husband at the time convinced me to get in to the water, which I don't know if you guys have seen my thighs. These thighs do not get in the water for fear of sharks. So I got in. I decided, you know what? We're on vacation. We're honeymooning. This is one of the few times that I'm going to be in a Hawaiian ocean.
Exactly.
So I got in, and somehow within 5 minutes of me being in the water, I got pulled into a large wave.
Oh.
That wave toppled me. And it happened so fast and it was so strong. I couldn't even grab a hold of my husband. It just took me so quickly. And when I got up, my swimsuit had been ripped off the top.
Are you serious? Wow.
In a beach full of tourists.
Yeah, that's a sign.
Was it a two-piece? I hope it wasn't a two-piece. Was it a two-piece?
It was not a two-piece. It was a one-piece.
Well, at least you could pull it back up. Two-piece, you gone. You got hands. You got hands.
That's true. That's very true.
Oh man.
No, it was a one-piece, and it was embarrassing, but I thought immediately of Pele, and I said, "Wow, it's true. It's very true." So going back to the Mayan story. If it was taken out of disrespect and it was taken without permission, without any type of gift being given in return, I would definitely think she pissed somebody off. These spirits were there to remind her, hey, this is not your land. You cannot just take just to take. There has to be some kind of permission granted. On the other hand, I know I sent you, Bobby, an article about rocks.
Yeah.
The Mayan, in our culture, we believe that everything has a spirit. The spoon that you use, the wooden spoon that you use to make your soup, the pot that you use to make your soup in, all of that has its own spirit. And you give thanks to it. You appreciate it. You give gratitude to these tools that keep you alive every day. Your car has a spirit. Your sandals have some sort of spirit attachment to them. So could she have possibly taken something so sacred to the Mayan people? We don't know how these Mayan pyramids were built.
Yeah.
We don't know what type of sacrifice went into it. We just think, oh, they're beautiful. We've discovered them and good for us. So now we're just going to take. You can't do that.
Yeah, that's so true.
That was so well said, Erika.
Yeah, exactly.
All of it.
Thanks.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it's funny how things correlate. Today I was just doing some research on just what you were speaking about, how items have their own spirits and are made up of their own cells and everything. And they are, that you do have to, say thank you to your car for getting you to work. And, the minute you curse it, it doesn't want to start or something's acting up and just different things like that. So that's extremely interesting. And then also in doing some Mayan research, I was learning about what people, some believe, which are a lot, that they had the magic to move stones via whistles, like they would whistle, and they were able to levitate, stones into place, and that's how they moved large rocks and everything like that. So, in reading and doing that particular research on it, I can see how that any rocks in that area, any land mass, stone or any of that stuff would have, you know, that energy from all those, you know, decades ago and, you know, hundreds of thousands of years, that, you know, it would still be in those stones, and that would be a part of, you know, that area and land. And I can see how, you know, a spirit or something you take from that area could manifest just off of that energy alone, you know, because like you said, it is their property. So that's very interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the stones that they build the pyramids with, it's kind of a known thing that there are certain materials and certain kinds of stones that can absorb, I don't know how to explain it, but they absorb the energy. So like you said, it's been thousands of years of history. There's been good, there's been bad. And these stones have been sitting there the whole time, just absorbing it like a sponge for so many years. So I wonder if, even if the intention was good or bad of her taking the stone, I wonder if it's just that stone just didn't belong with her. It didn't belong where she took it. It belonged where it came from. And it was, you know, just showing itself. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Because I think she was saying that she was from Canada, but she didn't even get a chance to take it back because I believe that happened at
her hotel.
Yeah, at the resort. So I'm pretty sure.
Well, it reminds me also of the Bell Witch Cave. I don't know if you guys have heard about the Bell Witch Cave in Tennessee, where it's a supposed haunted cave by a witch, the Bell Witch, and people have taken stones from there and have had horrible things happen to them, and they have mailed those rocks back to the what are they called, the rangers or the owners of the attraction of the Bell Witch Cave.
Yeah, that happens with Hawaii also. So did you ever get those seashells off of Hawaii, or what did you do? Did you put them back?
I took that as a sign, as that was the sacrifice that I had to give up for taking the seashells.
Okay. So you exchanged flashing Hawaii
so you kept them.
Seashells. Okay, that's a good
that seems
exchange.
Fair.
So I know.
Fair trade.
Okay. All right. That's good. Yeah. That's good to know.
I would rather flash Hawaii than die in a horrible shark attack or something terrible.
Or just being drowned. I mean, because those currents are crazy.
Right.
So yeah, that's very true.
It's a small sacrifice to make.
Exactly.
I really wanted those seashells.
Yeah, I can imagine. You know what's so funny though? I would have done the same thing. I wouldn't have even thought, because I'm thinking, when I think seashells, I'm thinking they're going across the ocean. They came from different places. I'm not thinking that they're indigenous to that particular landmass. I'm thinking that over time they've, you know, traveled, you know, to wherever, you know, to seashells. I'm not, you know, if it's a stone or if it's something that's I have to pick up and take away, that to me that's different. But hey, I'm not even messing with starfishes then. So yeah, for sure.
I was in Hawaii last December, and I didn't know this rule. I didn't know that you're not supposed to take
things. We go.
So I was taking rocks and seashells and stuff the whole time, but I didn't take them off the island. I would take them and put them in my pocket, and then at the Airbnb I would take it out. And so I wonder if that just doesn't count.
Are you sure none of those never made it to the mainlands?
I'm pretty sure. And as far as I know, nothing bad has happened yet. So
to you, I mean, come on. You always have crazy stuff going on, and technology is not your friend. So I don't know.
I mean, that's true. Bad things happen to me all the time. So maybe I just didn't put two and two together.
I have to think about that.
Just tell Pele thank you, and
there you go.
With respect. I hope that we're okay now. I can continue my life in peace.
And my intentions are always good. When I love nature. I don't mean no disrespect. So,
so Erika, so those are the stories that you have for tonight. Any others? Just before, actually, I want to get into your new digs and all that stuff. But
I have one more.
Okay,
I have one more that my mom used to tell us when we were kids. So, my mom is a child of 12 originally. Two died. Yeah, a lot of kids. My grandmother had 12 kids. 2 of them died in El Salvador, from natural causes.
Oh, wow.
but it was 10 of them. I'm sorry, 8. 8. More than 2 died. So it was 8 kids, 4 girls, 4 boys, and they were all in their mid-teens, around the same age. You know, in these smaller countries, they just tend to have one after the other, after the other.
Yeah.
There's not much of an age gap there. But they were traveling from one town to another. And this was late at night. And they were in a camioneta, which means a truck, you know, a basic, you know, Toyota truck, let's say, one of those basic trucks that you see nowadays. And the boys were, of course, out on the bed of the truck. And most of the girls were sitting inside of the vehicle. And they were traveling from one town to the next. They passed the lava fields, what they call the lava fields, where a volcano has erupted. And all of the land has pretty much been remodeled, remade into just lava. It has eaten up all the trees. There's no lights. There's no one living there. It's an abandoned area. As they were traveling through these lava fields, the only light was from the headlights of the truck. And my mom tells the story. She was sitting out in the bed of the truck at the time. They started to approach an object on the road. Mind you, this is not a highway. This is not like when you jump in your car and you go on the freeway where it's lit and there's actual, you know, signage everywhere or anything on the road telling you what lane you need to be in. This was a very primitive road that they were traveling on. Mm-hmm. As they were traveling, they saw this object on the road and everyone started asking themselves, what is that? What is that? What's going on? And the truck started to slow down. So of course the people in the bed of the truck were trying to figure out, okay, what's going on? We're slowing down. We're in the middle of the lava fields. And it was my grandfather, my grandmother, and the eldest that were inside of the truck. As they started to get closer and closer to this dark object on the road, they started to slow down and slow down. And it turned into a calf, a baby cow. But they were like, okay, it's a baby cow. Let's keep driving. And as they continued driving and getting closer and closer, it then shapeshifted into something else. It shapeshifted into just this black mass.
Wow.
And they slowed down even more. And, it's dark at night. You're tired. You're driving this desolate road. You're trying to refocus your mind as to what you're seeing. And as they kept getting closer and closer, this black mass just kind of started to grow in size. And it grew and grew. And they couldn't figure out in their normal mind what was going on.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they came to a halt. They stopped the vehicle and they started to look up and their head started to raise more and more as this thing was just kind of hovering over them. It had no lights. It had no discernible features. It was just a black mass. What my mom today calls, she gives it a name like the shadow of darkness or something of the sort in Spanish, la sombra de la noche, which is the shadow of the night. And it started to loom and kind of take over their truck. And as it started to do that, everyone started to pray. The kids in the back started to cry. Everyone was petrified and filled with fear. They were trying to figure out what was going on. All they knew is that they were in the middle of these fields where no one can help them. No one can hear them scream. No one can come to their aid. And this thing was just looming over them. So my grandfather said, step on it. And my tia, which is the eldest daughter, was the one who was driving. She was frozen in fear. My grandmother was crying and she was praying and she was, doing all sorts of prayers to las tres divinas personas and just, doing all sorts of, movements with her hands and signalizing the cross. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather told her, step on it. So she finally put her foot on the pedal of the gas and stepped on it and just kept driving, and it like sort of disappeared. But they will all 10 people will tell you the story to this day, that what they saw is unknown. It strikes fear. You can hear the fear whenever they retell this story over and over and over. And I love hearing it from everyone's perspectives. Yeah. But yeah, it's a spooky place to be in. You know, El Salvador regrettably is plagued by war, violence, and of course by elementals. So I loved hearing those stories when I was growing up as a kid.
The location of where it happened is interesting, that it was in a place where a volcanic eruption happened, and those rocks are supposed to be, you know, porous and full of just energy. So that is
Did the
creepy.
volcano take over any town or take any lives in that process of, you know, that happening, or it was just forestry that it was actually had taken over?
Destroying.
It was just forestry that time.
Yeah, because did it have any idea what it could have been or what the entity was?
They don't know.
Oh, wow.
Some of my uncles and aunts don't even like talking about it. I mean, they don't like going back to that time. But what they do know is that, one, it was not nature. It was not normal. It was not something of this earth. Number two, they have no idea what it was. But as they started to pray, this thing kind of started to dissipate, and that's when it kind of jolted them to take off in the truck and to step on it.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. That's an incredible story. For sure. All right, let's take another break, and then when we come back, we're going to get into some of Erika's maybe some haunting tales of our own. So,
ooh, yes.
Exactly. We'll be back.
Attention podcasters. Are you ready to unlock the full potential of your audio recordings? Look no further than GIK Acoustics, now proudly affiliated with Strange Darkness Radio. Introducing the ultimate solution for impeccable sound quality on your podcaster studio, brought to you by GIK Acoustics in partnership with Strange Darkness Radio. Say goodbye to unwanted background noise and hello to a professional audio experience. With GIK Acoustics, you can ensure that every word you speak resonates with clarity and power. Their expertly designed sound panels, bass traps, and diffusers are meticulously crafted to create an acoustic environment that captivates your audience like never before. Visit our affiliate link on our Facebook fan page or find it in our show notes to access this exclusive collaboration. By harnessing the power of GIK Acoustics in partnership with Strange Darkness Radio, you can unlock a world of acoustic excellence for your podcast. GIK Acoustics in partnership with Strange Darkness Radio. Embrace the darkness and let your voice shine. Now let's get back to Strange Darkness Radio.
All right. Hey, Erika. So, regale us with your spooky tales, because I hear you have some interesting stories or stories.
I have, I have a couple. I have a personal story, and then I have another personal story from my dad's perspective.
Okay.
Which one do you want first?
Your choice.
So we'll go to my dad's story, spooky story. So my dad is a very, what do you call those people who are very like scientific in mind? He's very like down to earth and very just
a skeptic.
Kind of very much a skeptic.
That's cold-blooded. He's just logical. He's thinking logical. He's being logical about,
yes,
how something works or what it is.
So my parents, bless their hearts, they're in their 60s and 70s and they're still working.
Okay, that's good.
And they currently work at a hospital and they work the second shift. And they just started this job, so they're super excited that, they have this wonderful job that keeps them, a roof over their head and food on the table. But they have the job of cleaning up the patient rooms after the patient has been released from the hospital. So my dad was telling me the story about room 10. And he said, Erika, I never believed in ghosts until I cleaned room 10. And so, of course, I'm like, oh, getting ready, just grab my popcorn. And I'm like, tell me, Dad, tell me what happened. What happened? And he's telling me that one night he went in and they asked him, they discharged, a patient from room 10, and they asked him to go clean that room. And it's a basic cleaning. It's not like blood and gore or any of that, or where someone has died. It's just someone was there. Either there's some rooms where they may have died, but they may have died like of a natural death. And my parents come in afterwards and clean out the garbage and replace the sheets and, do all that stuff.
Yeah.
He was cleaning out this garbage can, and he describes it as an older garbage can that kind of made this really loud clanking noise. So as he pulled the plastic bag out of the can kind of dropped and it made this loud noise. And from around the corner, he hears, "Are you my nurse?" He hears like this older kind of elderly female voice come out from around the corner. And he says, "Oh," I'm in his broken English, bless his heart. He says, "No, ma'am, I'm here to clean the room. Let me get you a nurse. I'm not your nurse. Let me get a nurse for you." And he puts the bag into the garbage can because he's trying to finish up what he's doing, his job.
Mm-hmm.
And he hears again, "Are you my nurse?"
Creepy.
And he's like, "No, ma'am. Let me get a nurse." So he finishes up what he was doing really quick with the garbage can, and he steps out because, number one, she's a female. He doesn't know what state that she's in, if she's, naked or needs help or whatever the situation may be. So he respectfully steps out of the room. He goes straight to the nurse's station and he says, "There's a patient still in room 10, and she's asking for help." The nurse quickly grabs the folders and is like, "No, that room is empty. It's been discharged." And he says, "No, I promise you there's a woman in room 10 that needs help." And so they walk back together to room 10, and sure enough, the room was empty.
Oh, wow. So was there a
That's
divider?
creepy.
You know how they have those dividers between beds? There's 2 beds in a room. Was the divider open or closed, or was it totally, like why did he think there was someone else in the room? Like other than hearing the voice?
Because he heard her voice.
No. If I'm standing in an open room and I hear a voice come out of, I'm going to think they're either in the bathroom or in the hall. I'm
Right,
I'm
could
not
be
going to
another
say
room.
in the
Right.
room.
It was coming from the direction of the bathroom, and it was a one-person room.
Okay.
The way that this hospital is set up. There's some rooms where they're the bigger rooms like you're describing, where it's that divider in the middle.
Yeah.
But this was a one-person room where it's just, and I'm thinking because maybe she's a female, elderly female, whatever it was that was going on, she had this particular room, but it was coming from the direction of the bathroom.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's...
Did they...
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Sorry.
No,
Did
go
they...
ahead.
Did he figure out if there had been a patient in there that had died recently, or was it, what did he think the explanation was? Because why did he jump straight to ghosts if he was a skeptic?
No, he went to ghosts because when they went to the room, no one was in there.
Well, I know, but what if it was just some like elderly patient that was wandering and went in the wrong room or something? There could be another.
No,
I don't doubt it, but I'm just saying. Yeah.
I'm gonna say when he was in the room, like Erika was saying, that he assumed she was in the bathroom. So and so once he actually found out there was no one in the room, he's gonna jump to ghosts because there was literally nobody in the room. Yeah.
Right.
Opposed to
they would have seen someone.
Yeah, exactly. Because one thing about because I'm in hospitals all the time. When you're in a room, you don't really hear, unless the person is screaming, you don't hear a lot of the other patients that are in other rooms.
That's true.
And again, being that he works in the hospital, I'm pretty sure differentiate between hearing a voice that's in your current location and opposed to somebody asking for help, you know, in another, because there are times even people will come, loved ones will come into the hall, and if the nurse is not answering the call button, they'll say, hey, we need help, you know, like, can somebody come into the room because, you know, X, Y, and Z needs help. And so yeah, that's interesting, because it's so intriguing to me, because a lot of people say, well, you know, ghosts wouldn't stay at hospitals. Like, you know, you want to break out, you want to get out and everything. But the whole thing about them being confused and you don't realize what's happening to you, as far as whether or not you went to sleep and you woke up, but you're not in your body. You know what I mean? So you know, there are times,
what's going on.
Yeah, there are things that I hear that when that happens, they actually, a lot of nurses will do this trick. And especially if you see this happen, you know that nurse knows something. If it's possible to open the window, because sometimes you can crack the window and it'll open, and they'll do that to let the spirits out, because they feel the spirit is trapped in the actual hospital and can't get out. You know, which you would say, well, why can't the spirit just float through the walls? But for whatever reason, you know, because again, if it's still a mindset of like, I'm real, I
have a body.
ghost. Yeah, I'm not, you know, and for some reason it just, you know, I know a couple of nurses that talk about that they actually do that maneuver to where if it's a way they can open up something, they will open it up, whether they leave the doors open, whether or not they crack a window to let a spirit out. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
You got to remember that my dad is a skeptic.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he would have come up with any other, he would have been looking for maybe a lost patient, but this room just happened to be adjacent to the nurses' station. So of course the nurses would have seen them. And he came home and straight up told me, I never believed in ghosts until now, until that happened to me. And I was just like, yeah, it's a real thing, Dad. It's a real thing.
I've seen so many videos like on YouTube and stuff where it'll be like a security camera footage of a hospital, and there's some, you know, security guard or nurse or whoever, and they're sitting there talking to nobody. And then their friends will kind of get on the walkie-talkie and be like, hey, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? Because they'll be watching them on the camera, and they're like, oh, this patient needs help, or they're asking me a question, whatever. And then they're like, dude, there's no one there. You're not talking to anyone. And then they freak out, or they'll just think that they're being pranked or something. But yes, wandering spirits in hospitals is a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. Trust me. I've seen a couple. So yeah, It's definitely a thing. But what about your story, Erika? Your personal story?
So my personal story. So I'm in transition at the moment. I am getting a divorce. And then I also got out of a relationship recently. So I moved back in.
I gotta say,
all good things. All good things, but yeah. I recently moved back in with my parents.
Oh, okay.
And this is a home that no one has lived in before. It's what they call here in Arizona a new build.
Oh, okay.
The land was absolutely vacant before we moved in, and we're the first dwellers of this, you know, beautiful structure that we currently live in.
Nice.
As I've lived here before, you know, in my 20s, when we first acquired this house, I actually bought the house with them. And my son had a hard time sleeping in the house. Mind you, he was 5-6 years old, somewhere around there, probably about a good 12 years ago or so. He was having a hard time sleeping in the room, in his bedroom. And he would say that he would see a little girl at the top of the stairs. Of course, I, at that time, was not very open. My third eye was very much shut. I was not open to any ghost stories or anything that had to do with the paranormal or spirituality. I was very much under a lot of stress, raising him by myself, going to school full time, being a full-time mom, working full-time. So my thoughts were not on he's seeing a little girl in the top of the stairs.
Exactly.
My thoughts were, how can I get this kid to go to sleep so I can get a little shut-eye?
Yeah.
So I ended up buying him several sets of different beds, believe it or not. One was a twin bed. There was another one that was shaped like a car. There were shapes of pencils. I ended up buying him all these different beds so that he would sleep in his room, and he refused. Well, fast forward now to me being in my 40s, and Eric is very much in his 20s. And I moved in here probably about a month ago. We had heard previously walking in the upstairs portion of the house, excuse me. We had heard footsteps before when I'd had come to visit throughout the years, but we always took it as the house is settling. I, of course, saged and cleansed the house several times now that my third eye is open, and I'm very much a spiritual person. And I open the window or I open a door when I sage because you want to let the spirits out.
Yeah.
So most recently, I was taking a shower. And I'm completely alone. Like I had stated earlier, my parents work second shift, so they're not here. My son works late at night, so he's not here. And it's pretty much just me. And I was taking a shower and I could hear, someone jiggling the lock to the handle of the bathroom door. And, the shower's loud. It's not quiet. It's like this huge rush of water, but I could hear it. And I'm like, what in God's name is that? And so I kind of turn off the water and I could see the door there's a movement there. But I'm just, my mind is like, oh my God, I'm being robbed.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking, oh my God, it's a ghost.
Yeah.
So that first time I just took it as, okay, this is crazy. I'm being robbed. My mind, my life is flashing through my mind right now. I quickly get dried and get prepared. I grab like a brush or something to defend myself with. And I open up the door really quick and I kind of jump out, expecting to see, a mass murderer. And there was nobody there. And I searched the entire house.
And that's even scarier.
And everything was locked up? Everything was locked?
Everything was locked. Thankfully, we live in a neighborhood where, that kind of stuff doesn't really happen. But you just never know.
Yeah.
But everything was locked. Nobody was home. So I immediately text my brother. And why my brother? Because he lived here prior to me. He had broken up with his longtime girlfriend. Mm-hmm. This is kind of like our transition home. You break up and you come to stay with mom and dad, and then you get into a relationship, you leave, and then you break up and you come back. It's kind of like that type of home.
Yeah.
So he had just left his girlfriend and he was living here for about a year prior to me. And he has some interesting ghost stories to tell. But I texted him, I said, Rick, have you been to the house? Were you just here? Because he's the only person that I could think of that would jiggle a lock so violently.
Yeah, or have a key to get in, because he probably has a key, right?
Right. And he would do it as a prank, like, hey, you're in the shower, get out. Something funny. So I'm like, Rick, were you just here? Like, were you just at the house? And he's like, no. And I'm like, I was about to tell him, please come over, or like, come keep me company, because I was petrified.
Yeah.
And I'm not one to get petrified. I love the paranormal. I respect the paranormal. But yeah, he was not here. It was just me and the ghost.
Yeah, that is freaky. Because that's you're like extremely vulnerable in that particular situation. And
true.
Yeah, all the things that are going through your mind, it's like, you're talking about grab a brush. Do I grab a towel, grab a brush? Do I, like what? So yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, I would have screamed. That's my, no, for all the guys, I would not have screamed like a scream. I would be like, hey,
masculine
so come on.
Scream.
Yeah, exactly. But a masculine, but I would have been like, hey, don't come in here.
Get out of here, ghost.
Exactly. Well, no, like she said, I would have thought it was a person initially. Yeah. I wouldn't have even probably thought about a ghost at the time. I thought it was a person, trying to come in. And,
right.
Because you're in a case in the house and you're like, oh, we hear the shower. And so you're by the door, you're listening. And then that's when you go for the, to jiggle the lock to come in. And it's like, so that's what would have freaked me out. But yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It happened to me twice, actually. Oh. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this entity, because the second time that it happened to me, I was also in the restroom. And again, I was alone.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, you could hear someone walking back and forth, shuffling something, like as if they're holding like bags of something in their, think of when you walk in and you're holding groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And you're carrying your plastic bags with all these groceries, and you're trying to not make that second trip. So you have tons of grocery bags in your hands.
Yeah.
Think of that walking, and the floors are wooden. The floors are wooden, so they retain, the heat and the cold. They expand and contract as it gets colder or warmer in the house. That's where my mind goes to, is what reasonable explanation can I think of? But I promise you that I was in that restroom and I could hear people walking, and I could hear them shuffling. And I quickly got dressed and was trying to figure out, okay, someone's home. And I went out again, and there was nobody here. It's almost like it likes to catch you when you're most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it seems like this ghost likes you for some reason.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, is there any type of Mayan entity that when a woman's in their, whether you're nude or a particular state, that it tries, to do something,
mess with you?
Yeah, because I've heard a lot in listening, in researching this, whatever, but it's more God orientated as far as different, not lustful spirits. They're all kind of different things because it's very, very intricate. But I did hear of something like that, but I just can't put my finger on it right now. But that's interesting.
I was going to ask if your son remembers, because you said that he used to be scared of something. Does he remember from back then? Or did he ever talk about like a ghost or seeing someone in the house or anything? Or was he just normal kid, scared of the dark kind of stuff?
I think he equated it to just growing up and just being scared of the dark. And I don't like to push him too much because I don't want to scare him.
Traumatize
him. Here. You're right. Like, I can handle it. So the funny thing about this entity is you're living here and you don't see things move. I haven't seen anything move. You don't feel like someone's watching you. You don't get, that creepy feeling where the hairs on your arms stand up.
Yeah.
It just randomly happens out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Has it happened to anybody else in the house besides your brother?
Yeah.
My brother, it's happened to my son. He's like, Mom, I can hear like things being moved upstairs. You go upstairs and you notice nothing's moved. But that's the furthest he'll take it. And I'll just be like, okay, we'll tell them, be quiet, ghost. So, I try to talk to, even though he's in his 20s still, I try to not instill fear in him.
Exactly.
Because it feeds off of fear.
Definitely.
My brother has some serious ghost stories to tell. My parents, they refuse to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in denial.
They've heard it.
Your dad might be coming around. Your dad might be coming around.
My dad definitely is going to start coming around, because there was one time really quickly, he had knee surgery.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't walk after the surgery. So it's a 2-story house. So we helped him up the stairs into the master bedroom. And of course they give you what? Pain pills.
Yeah.
So those make you go to sleep. So it was me, my mom, and my dad. I was there to translate for my parents what the doctor and the nurses were telling them. So I came and I stayed with them for a couple of days to make sure he was okay. Me and my mom were downstairs. My dad was upstairs, completely asleep and just out of it. You could hear someone walking.
Oh, wow.
And I said to my mom in Spanish, like, why is Papi walking? He should be in bed.
Yeah.
Like, what is he doing? So I, pretty much bolted upstairs. He was dead asleep.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's something. Yeah, something's in there. But it is funny how you don't feel it. You know what I mean? Like to where, I don't know, maybe it's a portal situation or where it's making itself
it's coming in
not
and
aware.
out.
Yeah, like because it's like it's going in and out. That's interesting.
So I will say this. My brother was dabbling into drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
I strongly believe that he opened a portal, and that portal, there's a lot of mirrors in the house as well.
Yeah.
So I've gone in and closed the portals in the mirrors. But I still believe there's an open portal somewhere. I'm just not strong enough. Regrettably, I don't have that dawn, that gift to be able to notice where exactly the portal is. But yes, I think it's exactly that. I think it is a portal.
Yeah. That's interesting that I know it's your parents' home now, that you didn't just pull all those mirrors down. Cause I'm not a big mirror person, because I do believe in, entities jumping in from, mirror to mirror. And especially if you have old mirrors, people don't ever buy mirrors at garage sales, because you never know.
Thrift stores.
Exactly. Yeah. You never know what's lurking in those mirrors.
Yeah, there's something about mirrors at night that's just creepy. I don't know why.
Yeah. And,
well, I guess I do know why.
And here's another thing too. Never have two mirrors facing each other.
Never.
Oh, never. True.
And I currently do right now.
I was checking my room to make sure I don't have any.
Oh, man.
Erika, you got to move those.
Exactly.
I know. Well, the problem is, and I'll send you guys a picture. The problem is that the bureau, the drawers where you put your clothes, they're mirrored.
Yeah.
And then the nightstand has little mirrors on it, so they're facing each other.
Oh,
and that was the first thing I did. I'm actually about to light my Palo Santo because I'm getting
creeped out.
I'm getting creeped out.
Oh man. Well, hopefully, it's you can turn it around. Have you ever did the thing to where you just leave me alone, go away, don't stop? Have you ever did that, Erika, to tell the entity to stop or leave you alone?
This is going to be terrible, guys, but I haven't, because I kind of enjoy it.
Oh, dang.
I'm a paranormal freak.
Hey, it's his house too. He can be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they always say though, if the spirit's not bothering you and it has its own place and time, and
right, if it's not malicious.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Let me ask you this weird question, Erika. When you're in the bathroom, or someone else is in the bathroom, have you ever jiggled the door handle and told your son to hurry up? Has that ever happened?
No.
Okay, because they say in different realms that bleed over, that let's say Erika one time, was telling her son to hurry up. You're, can you come out? I gotta go, whatever. And she's jiggling the lock. And then on the flip side, she's seeing it in her realm.
In this reality.
Yeah, in this reality.
That's
and it's
interesting.
bleeding through. It's bleeding over. So, things like that are to me are possible. And sometimes it's the very ghost that, that happens to you that, end up happening. Let me give you guys this one story real quick. There was this kid who, he was 5 years old. He ran into the living room area, and right next to is the kitchen. He sees a hooded figure. And when he sees a hooded figure, he darts back and jumps into, his bed and covers a blanket, in his room. Right. And so fast forward, now the kid is 16. He's up at night gaming. He goes and makes himself a sandwich in the kitchen. And then he sees a little kid entity come into the kitchen area and then dart off and run away. So was it a time slip? Was he seeing himself, I've
heard of things like that. I heard a story. Have you heard of the Sally house, Bobby? It's a famous haunted house.
I haven't.
Yeah, of course Erika has, and you haven't. But it's a house that's really famous for being haunted. People go do ghost investigations there. And what happened was this little girl.
Sorry, just real quick. Just for the viewers, Erika is saging her house as we're talking. Just FYI. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. So this little girl died. She had I can't remember. I think her appendix burst or something, and this was late 1800s. So they call the doctor, and the doctor's doing his best, but really he's just kind of torturing her more, and she's just died this horrific, horrible, painful death. And so ever since then, this house has been haunted. And one guy a ghost investigator that went to the house reported that, or maybe he wasn't even a ghost investigator. He might have just been a tourist, but he said that he went to the house and he wasn't even looking for anything. And then through these kind of glass doors, like leading to this, parlor, he could see a little girl, and she was wearing like an old dress, like from that time. And he said that he was looking at her and she was looking at him. And he said that the look on her face was like she was seeing a ghost, like she was scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, I wonder if there was some kind of a time slip there and they were really seeing each other.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those things are possible because
totally possible.
Yeah. Because as I asked Erika, has she ever jiggled the handle? Let's say it hasn't happened yet. you know what I mean? In the process. So
or someone jiggling the handle on her, like her son or her brother or whoever, like in the future, totally. Yeah.
So it's interesting. But so how's that saging going, Erika?
Do you feel safe?
Very well. I feel better.
Feel better.
What do you use? What particular sage do you use?
So I actually use Palo Santo. And I'll use Florida water. I don't know if you guys have heard of Florida water.
No.
I'll use. Oh wow, you've never heard of? Okay, it's a spiritual tool. It's a cologne, but it's used in spiritual practices. I make my own Florida water. I will ship you guys some if anything.
Yes, I would love that.
It is just such a powerful deterrent and space cleanser. So I'll use Florida water around the house. I'll use bells. I will clap. I try not to sage too much because of, the area that I live in Phoenix, Arizona. It's Diné, it's Navajo mainly. There's other tribes out here, but you have to have respect for their culture and what they do as their spiritual practices, which is using sage. So I try to leave that saging more on situations where I really feel like it needs it.
Yeah.
And I try to just hold that respect for my Dene brothers and sisters out there, especially now that sage is being not really ethically sourced.
Yeah.
And it's so there's other ways to cleanse other than sage. So I'll use rosemary or cinnamon. There's different methods that I will use for cleansing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's like I said, all those techniques are really awesome to use. Give your socials if you want to, Erika, as far as do you do any services at all?
I do. I have put it up, but I don't get very many hits because my account is on private.
Oh, okay.
But I do offer house cleansings. When it comes to something like paranormal, I'll definitely step in. But if it's something demonic or something where it's way out of my scope of being able to assist with, then, I'll respectfully step out of that type of situation. But just to do a home blessing, home cleansing, I'm your girl.
Oh, cool. Can you give that? And Carolyn will graciously put that information in descriptions as far as your Instagram and whatever else sites that you have. But what are the sites? Can you say them, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can mainly find me on Instagram as Eve SBK, all one word, Eve's BK, on Instagram.
Yes, and we're always you can catch Erika on our storyline and also in our I forget, it's not the one with the story, but the one that's always there when she first came on the show. So you can, her information is there also. But again, Carolyn will put that in show descriptions and all that good stuff. So any final words for Erika, Carolyn?
No, just thank you so much for being on the show. It was really interesting. Yeah, thank you. And you're such a great interviewee. I mean, we'd love to have you again.
Our
just
recurring Mayan folklore priestess is what she is. because
really interesting.
We've learned so much about her. Go ahead.
Can I just say before we cut, I want to thank both of you for being open. And I've listened to so many podcasts, paranormal podcasts out there, and it's very hard to find a podcast that will feature, Latin American stories like you have here a couple times. And I really, really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, you're welcome. And you're always, if I can have you all the time, I would, welcome to come on the show and also just talk about, the culture, because that's the biggest thing. Because in actually doing my research, there's not a lot out there that are podcast related. English speaking, I'm going to say, because she did hit me up on some that are. And actually, Erika, talk about that podcast that you were telling me about earlier, just to let people know to check that out.
Yeah. If you want to learn Spanish or are a little familiar in Spanish, you can certainly check out the podcast called Extra. So Extra Anormal. And you can find them on whatever medium you use for listening to podcasts.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And you can actually say that in full Spanish. Am I using that right? Just so that anybody comes across this information who does not speak English or speaks broken English and listening to this, you can, let them know, in Spanish to check out that particular podcast.
Es el podcast Extra Anormal.
There you go. So yeah, like I said, hopefully we can have you back on for some more creepy tales.
We should definitely have you back to talk about the Mayan and Aztec gods, because that would be interesting. I think people would love that.
I want to,
or any other history. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, exactly. And just to even update on your situation. Just to see if you get it figured out, and again, it's not like you said before, you're not trying to get rid of it, but let's see if Erika ends up having a conversation with a spirit that's in her home. You never know. Exactly.
More to come.
Yes, ma'am. All right. That's it for tonight on Strange Darkness Radio. Again, I want to thank Erika for joining us. And our host, Carolyn, who's always fun and all that good stuff. We got to get more creepier. I lighten up the mood too much on this show. We got to get more, darker and scarier.
We have some creepy topics coming up in future episodes, so we'll get back into our creepy ways.
Can be cracking jokes. All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ethel, do you know where you are?
My body!
You have passed over. You died.
No. Everything, my body, look at it's torn.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.